So after your bus conducting job, Paddy, what did you do?
I didn't do anything. There was absolutely no work for anybody. I mean, everybody in the village of Rosslake, everybody of my age and older, whole families left at the beginning of the war. There was, and today, there isn't a single member of any family that lived in Rosslake when I was young.
They're all gone.
They're all gone.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was it a miserable place?
Oh, it was a great place.
Yeah,
I mean, it was what we used to say, and we often said since, it was the happiest village in Ireland. And there was more music. Every house had music. If you came into Rosslake, say from the quay, the first house you met was a little tin house occupied by Welshers, and there were 4 boys there, all played the fiddle. And probably the next house was my mother, who played the piano, and there were accordions, and right back to Eaton's house, or where Cottle Hughes is now. And they would all get together at my mother's house in the evening, and the road outside would be full of people, and there were singers and accordion players and 3 or 4 playing the fiddle. Oh, it was a lively place.
And how were they managing to live if they had no jobs? What income had they?
Well, it's a good question. I asked myself the same thing. I suppose there was some sort of dole, but it would have been very, very small money.
Like you're talking about the late 30s and early 40s, are you?
I'm talking about the late 30s and the early 40s. But then, when we all went to England, all the boys here of my age and older went to England, we all sent money home. And right through the war, in fact, through all my time in England, because later on, when I became a quantity surveyor in the Ministry of Works in London, and I was, I suppose, fairly well paid, but I would still send quite a lot of money to my mother every week. And the same with everybody else, so that the families who were left in the village lived on the money they got from their children in England.
So you went to England then?
I went to England. Well, I went to England.
What year was that?
In 1940.
1940. And what did you do over there?
I was taken on by Langs, as a trainee surveyor, and we were building an airfield just outside Lincolnshire. It's a place called Swinderby. And Swinderby was manned by small light bombers called Hamptons at the time. And they were twin-engine bombers. And later on, because we built a big long runway, and they had big Lancaster bombers there. And after that, I was moved by Langs to build another airfield in Lincolnshire. There were 63 airfields in Lincolnshire during the war. It's a completely flat county, so it was very easy and very suitable for bombers. But there were airfields everywhere.
And were they very busy? Were there a lot of flights in and out all the time?
Every night, the bombers, unless it was awful weather, bombers flew out every night, and I would go around and I would be measuring up where we dispersed the bombers around the airfields. And you'd have maybe 20 bombers go out from Swinderby, and next morning there would be 5, 6, 7 bombers missing.
Missing, yeah.
Yeah.
And would you be told about this, or did it be talked about?
The extraordinary thing was, I could walk around all these planes and talk to the RAF ground crew, and I'd say to them, would you give me a handful of used machine gun bullets, and they would do things like that. And after we built this other place then out in the country in Lincoln, I was moved to Norfolk to build an airfield for the Americans. And my next move was involved in building a hospital for the Yanks over in Shropshire. And after that, I got a job with the Ministry of Works in London, in their Chief Quantity Surveyors Division.
That was a government job or a Lang
That
job?
was a government job, yes.
So you left Lang's then?
I left Lang's then, and I wanted to be in London. So I was in London from 1943, and I was in London then through all the
Bombing.
V1s and V2s, the Germans, you know, the V1s were the
The rockets. Yeah.
what do I call them?
Rockets.
Well, the rocket was the V2. The V1 was a jet engined single plane, which you know, just the engine cut out over London, and the bomb or the plane dropped, and it was a 2,000-pound bomb.
And what was it like to live through this?
It was pretty nasty, because almost every day the air raid sirens would go for the V1, these jet planes, and they came over. Initially the anti-aircraft guns fired at them, but they stopped firing in the end, because they were doing more damage than the planes were doing.
And was it frightening? Or did you get used to it?
It was frightening, yeah.
And what would you do when...
I can remember walking. I used to walk to work, and I walked along the embankment, because our office was on the embankment, and I can remember seeing 5 V1 bombers coming one after the other. They all came on the same flight, and they just followed one another, and I thought, I'm very, very naked here. All of them flew over, except 2, and one stopped, the engine would cut out, and then the plane would dive, and it dived actually into the river.
In front of your 2 eyes?
I was frightened the life out of me. The next one cut out, and it continued to glide, and it glided over the office that I worked in, and then it landed a little bit further on. Didn't do any damage actually to us.
So you would have seen a lot of action, like bombing and...
Well, certainly.
Destruction.
And then one day, the nearest I came to the V2, which is the big rocket, and that came in at apparently its speed was 3,000 miles an hour. So it landed and exploded, and then you heard its approach after it had exploded. And in fact, one day I was on a bus going up King's Road in Chelsea, and all the windows, there was a huge explosion over on our right, and all the windows in all the shops were sucked out into the street, so that the blast actually went over the tops of the shops and the houses, and instead of blowing the windows in, they sucked them all out into the street. I don't know, I mean, we were on the bus, and the bus rocked like hell, but nothing happened, and we just went on.
And did you have a social life during the war?
Oh, we did, yeah. We would go to dances in big halls around, what was the...
Hammersmith?
Hammersmith
Palais?
Palais. We'd go to Hammersmith Palais regularly, and we'd lots of Irish there, even met people from Westport.
And would you go to the pubs there?
We did go to the pubs. We went to the pubs.
And would you mix with the English, or was it an Irish group you mixed with?
Oh yeah, I mixed with the English. I lived in Chelsea in London, and at the bottom of our street, which is Oakley Street, where my son lives today, and we'd go to the pubs there, and everybody, the men and women and service people and non-service people, but the pubs were always packed.
And would they ever be bombed, or bombs dropping near them when you'd be in there, yeah?
None of the pubs that I knew were bombed.
But if an alarm went off, an air raid alarm went off, would you leave them? Would you
yes.
leave them?
We didn't leave them. Some people would leave them. Most people didn't leave them.
Yeah, the fatalistic view, did you?
And in fact, I once in Lincoln, when an air raid siren went in the digs I was in, they all sort of rushed out because there was an air raid siren, an air raid shelter in the pub, in the street, outside the house. And I went in there and I thought it was absolutely awful. And that was the only time in the whole war that I went in an air raid shelter.
And would you be expected to go when the alarm might go off? You'd be expected to go down, you would?
We'd go down into the basement, which, was daft, because if the house was hit, you were dead.
And when you went to England, what was it like? What was the change like coming from Westport to London? Or to... how did you react? Did you think it was exciting?
Well, your main reaction was to the food, because, the food wasn't really rationed so much in Ireland, certainly not in 1940. And then when you went in digs, you were fed. You were adequately fed, and everything you read about now says that people were far healthier during the war because they ate more vegetables and they ate less meat. And one day, when I was on the first airfield I was on, one day, an Air Force officer came over, an RAF guy came over, and I happened to be talking to the man who operated our weighbridge. And they said to this guy, would you mind if we weigh the bombs we're using? Because he said, we suspect that they're all lightweight or underweight. So they came over with a truckload of bombs from 50, 100 pounders, 200, 500, 1,000 and 2,000 pounders. And they were weighing all these on the weighbridge. And this man was saying, look, every bomb is under the weight it should be. And they were putting these up on a little crane with a very thin wire. And they slung this 2,000 pounder on this wire. And I was standing beside the weighbridge, and they hauled this 2,000 pounder up. The wire broke, and the 2,000 pounder fell on the weighbridge.
Nothing happened.
And he said, you'll never be nearer than that, because he said, luckily it wasn't fused.